They fed families during wartime, cost mere pennies, and then vanished. Before endless supermarket choices, our grandparents relied on clever, filling meals. Some became classics, others were forgotten. What were they? Why did they disappear, and should we bring them back? Beef stew is a nostalgic childhood dish nobody can go without. Fresh pearl onions and a broth made out of the beef stock were the tricks to an unbeatable stew that is sorely missed every time you eat one that is not your grandma's. The modern-day beef stew involves an entire list of 10 ingredients for better readability that feels more like an overdone broth mixed with a lot of toppings. But that is because beef stews have gone a bit out of fashion unless you are in the South. This is also because beef stews today are usually made with red wine as a base. But the hearty and vigor-filled ones of your childhood were all about keeping it simple with vegetables and a solid cut of beef. Something that is ridiculously common in Southeast Asian households in America, but a little less known to natives of Uncle Sam's residence, is that rinsing your rice with water can do wonders for any dish. Literally, any dish that involves even the slightest hint of rice. This is because rinsing removes the extra starch packed into rice, giving you fluffier grains with minimal effort. If you are the type of person who enjoys their rice soft, airy, and mushy, then this is one kitchen hack you need to try. This time, you can thank brown grandmas for passing it on to the mainstream. Even culinary scientists like Matt Slem vouch for this, and just like with sticky pasta, nobody enjoys eating sticky rice. So you could not finish up all your pizza in one go, but you bet the gang that you needed an entire large one to yourself. It happens to the best of us, but do not let overestimation trap you into forcefully eating soggy leftover pizza. Reheat it in a skillet and get that crust crispy, fresh, and warm, all in one go. Just because something is a leftover does not mean you have to completely sacrifice the original quality. You can still get a lot of bang for your buck if you take the time to heat it the old-fashioned way. We know microwaves are convenient, almost dangerously so, but they cannot do everything that gas-based fire and kitchen utensils can. So if you really do not feel like sitting through mushy, soggy pizza crusts, you know what to do now. In Texas, as well as New York, rice with raisins started becoming a really popular dish among the middle class and a breakfast that many children grew up on, especially in Indian American communities which were sparse at the time, but they were still there every other block or two. It was already customary to eat rice with milk and raisins there, so they brought it to America, and others took note. They were not the only ones to introduce it, though, since Chinese Americans also had their own take on the recipe that led to a more custard-like variant. When people could not afford to even eat rice pudding, they would make their rice and eat it with different kinds of nuts and raisins. The idea spread like wildfire in states like Alabama and Arkansas and the Midwest overall. In Michigan, it was a pretty common choice to use brown sugar and cinnamon whenever available. The next thing we have on the list is Hoppin' John's soup, which is right out of the classics of soul food in the southern parts of America and all over, really. I say the South because that's where people most commonly associate its origins with. However, the Hoppin' John dish itself was something that was a result of all the Africans that were brought over as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. This dish typically involves black-eyed peas and African rice, but in soup form, it works just as well with mushrooms, basic vegetables like bell peppers, and spices. This is one of the best soups you could find yourself making in the winter, especially if you live in areas where the temperature really drops to bone-chilling levels. It's so hearty and warm that the dish just screams pure comfort in every way and form. It was a really popular appetizer on a lot of restaurant menus, and it was amazing as a lunch too, but this is a textbook example of an old head recipe. You wouldn't remember it, and your parents probably don't either if they're a little on the young side, but I'm sure anyone's grandparents would remember having this, or at least hearing about it in the days when it was still one of the trendiest soups around. Grandma always had a jar of chia seed pudding in the fridge, her go-to breakfast or snack packed with omega-3 fatty acids and fiber. Made by simply mixing chia seeds with milk and letting it sit overnight to thicken, this simple dish became a powerhouse of hydration and digestion. To make chia seed pudding, all you need is 3 tablespoons of chia seeds and about a cup of liquid. Stir them together, let it sit in the fridge for at least 4 hours, and voila! an easy, nutrient-packed treat. Add honey, vanilla, or fresh fruit for extra flavor. Chia seeds are rich in omega-3s, which help keep skin hydrated and promote a healthy glow. The high fiber content supports digestion by keeping things moving smoothly in the gut, which in turn can reduce bloating and promote clear skin. Plus, chia seeds are loaded with antioxidants, which protect skin from the damaging effects of free radicals. This nutritious snack has been around for centuries, used by ancient civilizations like the Aztecs and Mayans, who believed chia seeds gave them energy and endurance. Grandma knew this. She always said, "Chia seeds are like little miracle workers for your skin and digestion." And honestly, who could argue with that logic? Stuffed peppers. Forget those boring pre-made things you see at the grocery store because stuffed peppers are here to save the day. We're talking about the beautiful bell peppers Grandma made on Thanksgiving. Vibrant red, yellow, or orange peppers are hand-picked and carefully hollowed out and then stuffed with a flavorful mixture of fluffy rice, seasoned ground meat, and your choice of chopped vegetables. Once stuffed, these peppers are baked to perfection until they are tender and crisp. Now, this isn't just a casual meal. Whipping up a stuffed pepper might make you feel like a master chef in the kitchen. It's also a great way to use up leftover rice and ground meat. Bonus points. If you use their visual appeal to trick your children into getting their daily dose of veggies. Yeah, the little ones don't really go for the green peppers on the table, but they might just love these stuffed peppers. You might even add some cheese to top it off. Unfortunately, it is one of those dishes that has faded from many dinner tables. Tamale pie is an American dish that brings together the heartiness of ground beef, the comfort of a cornmeal topping, and a blend of savory seasonings that make it a family favorite. While the name might suggest a traditional tamale, tamale pie is actually a casserole that layers these ingredients for a meal that's both satisfying and easy to make. The dish likely has its roots in the Southwest, where tamales have been a staple in Mexican cuisine for centuries. However, tamale pie emerged in the United States in the mid-20th century as a more accessible version, taking the flavors of tamales and turning them into a bake. Ground beef is browned with onions, garlic, and chili powder, then topped with a cornmeal batter and baked until golden. The result is a savory pie with a cornmeal crust that mimics the texture of a tamale. Tamale pie quickly became a favorite for home cooks thanks to its simplicity and versatility. It could be customized with ingredients like cheese, olives, or even jalapenos to suit personal tastes. Some families served it with a side of cornbread or a dollop of sour cream for extra richness. Tamale pie is proof that you don't need a fancy tamale press to make a meal that's full of flavor. Simple, hearty, and always a crowd pleaser. We're going to end the list on an age-old trick, and I'm sure some of you can already guess. You pickle in vinegar, and yes, the cartoons, the movies, and your grandparents were all right. It really does work. A lot better than we'd like to think, really. You can soak just about any kind of food in this too. You can even throw in eggs and meat, not just vegetables and different kinds of fruits. This solution of vinegar, salt, and water, as well as sugar and spices, results in this really tangy and sour flavor, which for some is an acquired taste, but it extends the shelf life of whatever you're cooking with by miles. So the pickling solution involves white vinegar with water and salt. Some people throw in garlic, dill, and coriander or peppercorns in there. The vinegar and water mix can either be heated or just poured cold, but the important part, and really the one where all the magic happens, is when you submerge it. The acidity of the vinegar helps to preserve the food a lot, while the sealing ensures that it stays fresh. Depending on the spices you throw in, your fruit or meat can get a lot more flavorful too. In the South of America, loads of people would pickle okra or cucumbers or even beets, especially during the Depression. They made such good appetizers, they were convenient to carry, and they helped things last longer. Honestly, it's just a win-win-win-win all around. And what else can you ask for in life? Twice cooked potatoes are firmly a thing of the past now, but that does not mean this video cannot serve as your inspiration to bring back this hit, which was especially popular with grandmas all around the country. Like we said with the previous dish, something being good for your health and tasty does wonders for its appeal, and Granny's knows how to get the best of both worlds. Double cooking always had a benefit because it made them a lot easier to digest and increased their starch. They would prick the potatoes, cook, cool, then cook again before topping it off with green onions and bacon. An incredibly American idea, but also an extremely flavorful one. So do not hesitate to give this one a go. This is one you have definitely heard about. Popeyes, Wendy's, KFC, or Burger King, there is nothing that hits that sweet spot in every corner of your head like some fried chicken does. Something about it makes it the perfect marriage between seasonings, oil, chicken, and breadcrumbs. You have probably tried this yourself too, but using baking powder on that chicken skin can get you some extra crispy zingers ready to go. Perfect for sandwiches, burgers, or just some chicken katsu curry. Ever feel like doing something extra with your chicken fillet? You know what to pull out of the cabinets. There's never been anything bad that came out of too much crispiness, except cholesterol issues and heart problems, but that's for like when you are 60 or something. So most oatmeal meatloaf recipes use the oats as a side piece to, like, 2 pounds of lean ground beef, but that was obviously not what people were working with back then. Instead, the loaf was made entirely of layers of oatmeal, with sausages and bacon stuffed into it to give that meaty profile. Some dried onions and garlic meant that there was good enough reason to get the fine plates out, and there was always enough to go around too. Plus, grandmas really ran with the recipe right after the Depression ended and things started going back to normal. They would add things like tomato sauces and never spare the eggs or the flour. Probably why kids would love it so much since they went all out with it. But after going through a patch where this was a luxury, you cannot blame them for wanting to go the extra mile either. Bacon. Crackers, I mean, sure, they're pretty good even as a typical easygoing breakfast, but what do we really do here? You eat something enough times, you tend to get used to it and get bored. How do you get around that? Well, since the topic is retro dishes, we used to hear a lot about bacon bow tie crackers back in the day. It was something you could find for breakfast or a cocktail appetizer, which is some serious versatility. The crackers were extra crispy since they were wrapped inside bacon and then baked until the bacon itself was pretty crispy. It was the perfect combo, and all they needed was each other to realize that. It was smoky but sweet. It was also savory, but buttery smooth and not dry at all. Dishes that are such neat little combinations like these are often hiding right under your nose, and if we didn't have the imagination of so many home chefs who found these and got them into the public sphere, then we'd be a lot more tasteless as a country. One of Grandma's favorite morning rituals was her apple cider vinegar drink. This zesty tonic, made by mixing a tablespoon of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar into a glass of water, was her secret to staying balanced inside and out. Apple cider vinegar is made by fermenting apple juice twice. The first fermentation turns it into alcohol, and the second introduces bacteria to create acetic acid, the compound responsible for its tangy flavor and health benefits. To sweeten the deal, some people add honey or a dash of cinnamon, but Grandma liked it straight. She said it woke her up faster than coffee. Internally, it helps balance the body's pH, improve digestion, and support gut health. Better digestion means better nutrient absorption, which reflects in healthier skin. Additionally, its natural antimicrobial properties can help combat breakouts and promote a clear complexion. Historically, apple cider vinegar has been around since ancient Greece. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, used it as a healing tonic. ACV was a popular home remedy during the Great Depression, praised for being effective and affordable. Cheesy broccoli and rice casserole is a dish that may just be the ultimate comfort food. It's the kind of meal that fills the house with an irresistible aroma, combining the earthiness of broccoli, the warmth of rice, and the creamy richness of cheese. Its popularity skyrocketed in the 1960s, when casseroles became a go-to for busy families looking for easy, satisfying meals. The origin of this casserole can be traced back to the post-war era when convenience foods, like canned soups and processed cheeses, took center stage. The combination of broccoli and rice, often bound together with a can of creamy mushroom soup, was an affordable and filling way to stretch ingredients. Over time, home cooks started adding their own twists, incorporating cheddar cheese, garlic, and even a crunchy breadcrumb topping for texture. While it's easy to dismiss cheesy broccoli and rice casserole as just another side dish, it's also the type of meal that can easily steal the spotlight at dinner. It's a versatile dish, whether served alongside a roast chicken or as the main event for a meatless dinner. Cheesy broccoli and rice casserole is the ultimate kitchen hack. Tastes gourmet, takes no time, and leaves everyone smiling. It's the kind of dish that proves simplicity can be deliciously satisfying. So chicken paprikash is a Hungarian dish that sounds fancy, but is basically a party in a pot for your taste buds. Imagine juicy chicken pieces slow-cooked with tender onions in a creamy sauce, bursting with the warm, smoky flavor of paprika. It's served with a side of fluffy rice or noodles. Chicken paprikash really found its footing back when Chinese takeout wasn't as big of a thing. You know, back when Grandma used to put on the apron and cook for us? This dish really was the one-pot wonder. Bonus points. If your grandma used to whip this up for you, that nostalgia factor is real. A version of it still exists in Bulgarian cuisine in case you crave the it now. The Bulgarians are a little light on the paprika and center the dish on sautéed onions. Okay, creamed spinach and pearl onions didn't look the most appetizing, but trust me, it was always a hit at family dinners. Think of a rich, creamy base packed with vibrant green spinach leaves. And let's not forget the star of the show, pearl onions, that added the perfect touch of sweetness. Not only was this dinner finger-licking delicious, but it was healthy too. Jam-packed with nutrients including vitamins A, C, and K, iron, folate, potassium, and a good amount of fiber. Just don't blame me if you get flashbacks to your school cafeteria. But hey, sometimes those cafeteria classics deserve a second chance, especially when they're this delicious and healthy all at the same time. Next, we're going to look at a classic for coastal cities, which is some old-fashioned canned sardines. Usually, the cans would be filled with oil, water, sauces, mustard, or tomatoes, and they had a lot of flavor and health benefits. You could get some really vivid and salty fish that also happened to be full of omega-3, making your Lank account only slightly lighter and your body 10 times fresher. Plus, the best part about fish like this was just how easy it was to make it, and all the things you could do with it. You could steam the fish, boil it, or even grill it and fry it. If that wasn't up your alley, then you could just eat it with crackers, make a sardine sandwich, or even dice it up and use it as a pizza topping or in a salad. People even used sardines in pasta, and I don't know about you, but I think that covers most of what we eat in our daily lives. All that for just 10 cents? Sign me up. Plus, sardines were arguably the most common catch of the day. That explains why they're so cheap. But it also meant that this was a taste pretty much everyone had acquired over years and years of eating them, so not only was it cheap and good, it was familiar and nostalgic. Real comfort food vibes, you know? Now, the next thing we have is packing your meat in saltwater brine. The reason this works is because saltwater brine is a method of preserving food by submerging it in a mix of salt, water, and ingredients like herbs and spices for aromatics. Salt pretty much gets rid of any kind of moisture that you don't need and makes an environment that promotes longevity in your protein by getting rid of any bacteria that would cause spoilage. The concentration of salt is around 10%, and when dissolved in water, you basically get a bath with some really nice preserving effects. Curing ingredients, like the ones used in cold smoking meats, are often things like sugar, nitrates, or spices that people would add to the brine. This would help add flavor and make sure the meat keeps its color, just like how we discussed before when nitrates came up. Brining would typically take a while, but that would depend on the kind of meat you were using and its size. It wasn't really just people who were living centuries ago that did this. Lots of indigenous communities, nomadic people, and even upscale restaurants still use brining as a technique to either preserve meat or to increase its lifespan. Brining helps to bring flavors out because the meat stays submerged for so long, the flavors get infused. The next time you want to figure out how to take your meat up a notch, maybe try a saltwater brine. Garlic-infused olive oil was another one of Grandma's hidden gems. She used it both in the kitchen and as a topical treatment, thanks to its powerful antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties. Making garlic-infused olive oil is simple. Take a few cloves of garlic, crush or chop them, and add them to a bottle of extra virgin olive oil. Let it steep for about a week in a cool, dark place, shaking it every day to allow the flavors to meld. The garlic releases its potent compounds, which work wonders when used both inside and out. Internally, garlic is well known for its ability to boost immune function and fight harmful bacteria. But when applied topically, it acts as a natural antibacterial agent, helping to clear up skin infections and soothe irritated areas. The olive oil serves as a hydrating base, offering deep moisture while also aiding in the absorption of the garlic's nutrients. Ancient Egyptians even used it as a remedy for ailments. During World War II, soldiers used garlic to prevent infection in wounds. Hamburger hash is the unsung hero of the frugal kitchen. Born out of necessity and ingenuity, this dish has been rescuing leftovers and stretching budgets for decades. The concept is simple: ground beef, diced potatoes, and onions cooked together in a skillet. But its simplicity is exactly what makes it timeless. The origins of hash can be traced to the 17th century, when the term came from the French word hacher, meaning to chop. In America, it evolved into a practical way to repurpose leftover meats. By the 20th century, hamburger hash became a staple in many households, particularly during tough economic times, when every ingredient had to count. Potatoes were the perfect partner, cheap, filling, and versatile. Onions, meanwhile, brought a touch of sweetness to balance the savory beef. Some cooks added a sprinkle of paprika or a dash of Worcestershire sauce for an extra punch of flavor. While it may not have the glamour of a Sunday roast, hamburger hash had one major advantage. It came together fast, a blessing on busy weeknights. Hamburger hash proves that even leftovers can shine, especially if you fry them just right. It's a humble dish with a big heart, reminding us that great meals don't need complicated recipes. Hear me out, this one might sound a little boring at first glance, but trust me, it's a classic for a reason. The split pea soup is a hearty, filling, and surprisingly healthy-ish, thick, creamy soup packed with vibrant green split peas and other vegetables like carrots, celery, and onions. Now, on that healthy-ish claim, it depends on how much butter and cream your grandma used. The split pea soup is the kind of soup that leaves you feeling satisfied for hours. It has been a St. Patrick's Day staple ever since its origin in 1905. The best part? You can totally customize it according to your liking. Yeah, don't be shy to throw in your favorite veggies, add a splash of lemon juice for a bit of brightness, or even some leftover shredded chicken for an extra protein punch. We really need to bring this one back. So the next two dishes we have on the list are actually some classics right out of Africa and its many varied cuisines. First off, we have chicken and collard greens pilau, which is just the perfect dish to have if you're aching for something that involves a lot of rice in it. The steamed and boiled chicken mixed with the pilau as a base for the dish gives it an aroma that's pretty much unbeatable. Back in the middle of the 20th century, if you really wanted to experiment with some foreign cooking and tastes, then you would go into African American communities and try out the best of their soul food. You'd have to look around a little for the really nice restaurants, especially if you were in places like the southern parts of America, but nonetheless, people found a way. Pilau itself is also a dish that's extremely common in the subcontinent for many reasons. People use basmati rice for this, which is a little different from the rice you guys might be used to, but if you give it a shot, you might find that it has a more full flavor all around. Also, don't even get me started on how good this is for you. If you're a gym bro looking for a great way to add some tasty protein and carbs to your diet, then chicken and collard greens with some pilau is a pretty flawless place to start. Comfort food in the 1940s could not be discussed without somebody bringing up American slumgullion. This was really hot in the Midwest and the South, mostly by its other name of goulash. The dish has been in recipes and cookbooks since at least 1913, and it would include ground beef simmered in a tomato sauce. It was a dish for nights that you really wanted to make matter, and it was also a great way to keep the nutrition and protein intake up. Think of it as like a kind of casserole, and if you have heard of it before, you should know the 1930s versions were a bit different. These ones involved no pasta or macaroni or cheese. Those would become staples of the dish much later on, and we have grandparents to thank for that too. Here's a patty grilling technique endorsed by the culinary virtuoso himself, Gordon Ramsay. You get some nice beef patties, perfectly shaped, seasoned, and ready to be slapped onto the grill for the most divine homemade burger you have had in the past 5 years. Turns out it was a bit too humid, the meat was a little dry, and the grilling took away all the moisture. You end up with a dry, chewy patty that does neither your teeth nor your taste buds any favors. So what's an honest burger lover to do? Put some ice cubes on that bad boy and let it grill. You will genuinely be shell-shocked at the results. The whole thing here is that it keeps that moisture locked into the patty, so the burger stays constantly juicy throughout the process, from the moment you put it on the grill to the moment it hits your plate. It is not like you have anything to lose by trying except like 4 ice cubes, so give this a shot. And remember, you can always take Ramsay's word for it too. Flaky buttermilk biscuits are all well and good if you buy them as a snack at your local mart. But you have not tried a buttermilk biscuit until you get a veteran baker to make these for you. Who better than family? And what family member is more skilled in baking than your trusty grandmother? Well, not all of them cook or bake, but the nation has more than its fair share of grandma's creamy buttermilk recipes floating around the internet and cookbooks from dozens of years ago. Practice always makes perfect, and most home chefs learned that the great secret of an impeccable buttermilk biscuit is to not overmix so that you avoid flat and tough biscuits. These were extremely common as snacks to give to children in the family during holidays and were the perfect pairing for a gift basket. There are some baking challenges that only your grandmother is equipped for, and making the pinnacle of brown butter sweet potato pies was one of them. Seriously, even bakeries and fancy eateries have struggled to nail every aspect of a pie, but for most home chefs in the United States, it seems to be just another Tuesday with the oven. You take a flaky pie crust with a velvety potato filling that is usually topped off with whipped cream, but most older cooks preferred maple syrup as that was what they grew up with. Just a bit of dark brown sugar would elevate this dish into the perfect dessert, though it would often steal the show entirely on its own. The thing is built to make your mouth water, and we mean looks-wise too, since the brown and caramel hues of the pie just make it all the more enticing. Have you ever heard of this one before, and would you try it? A golden rule passed down from grandmother to mother, and eventually to our generation, is that whenever you're cooking carbs like pasta or spaghetti noodles, you drizzle in a little olive oil. The trick here this time is that it prevents the noodles from sticking together, and we all like our noodles with extra twirling ability. Stacking up loads of pasta on a fork for a massive bite is one of the joys of pasta, to be honest, and that can only work if they are not all stuck together like somebody poured in hot glue. Olive oil can do literal wonders for this little problem that dominates most pasta-based dishes, and if you are new to it and want to make some killer Alfredo, remember to try this out. So most oatmeal meatloaf recipes use the oats as a side piece to, like, 2 pounds of lean ground beef, but that was obviously not what people were working with back then. Instead, the loaf was made entirely of layers of oatmeal, with sausages and bacon stuffed into it to give that meaty profile. Some dried onions and garlic meant that there was good enough reason to get the fine plates out, and there was always enough to go around too. Plus, grandmas really ran with the recipe right after the Depression ended and things started going back to normal. They would add things like tomato sauces and never spare the eggs or the flour. Probably why kids would love it so much since they went all out with it. But after going through a patch where this was a luxury, you cannot blame them for wanting to go the extra mile either. Hoppin' John is a dish that has some pretty rich heritage. I'm talking about African, Caribbean, and Native American roots that all boil together in the melting pot known as the South, where it first started becoming really trendy. However, the origins of the dish are actually a bit darker than just a happy coincidence that somehow got into everyone's table. Though the people who were eating it happily wouldn't know, it was first created and brought over by enslaved Africans in the American South. It made use of African rice and pork, and yes, the best part of the dish were the black-eyed peas even in those times. Now, as far as the name Hoppin' John is considered, nobody really ever knew where it first came from, or if there was a John who made this dish and brought it into everyone's lives, but the first time this name was mentioned was in the 1840s in a print. If you were down in the South and African American communities during New Year, then you would especially see a lot of Hoppin' Johns everywhere. The aroma of those peas and the smoked pork wouldn't miss anyone's nose, as the scent carried for miles and miles away. It was eaten specifically on New Year's because it was a common belief that eating Hoppin' Johns would bring good luck to people if they ate it to start the year. If you went into any new year with such a good plate of food, I'd say your luck was already pretty good. So maybe it does work? Grandma's whole grain. Porridge was a powerhouse of nutrients to fuel the day ahead. She would often make it with millet, quinoa, or oats, all of which are packed with fiber, vitamins, and minerals. These grains were the perfect way to start the day, providing lasting energy without the crash that comes from sugary cereals. To make her porridge, Grandma would simmer her choice of grains in water or milk until they softened into a creamy, hearty consistency. She'd top it off with honey, cinnamon, or fresh fruit for extra flavor and antioxidants. The beauty of this breakfast was its simplicity and nutritional value. Each grain brought its own benefits to the table. Oats, millet, and quinoa are rich in fiber, which helps support digestion and maintain a healthy weight. They're also full of essential vitamins, like B vitamins, which help promote healthy skin. A fiber-rich diet helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels, and the nutrients in whole grains can keep your skin looking radiant by supporting healthy circulation. Whole grains have been around for centuries, dating back to ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and the Greeks, who recognized the health benefits of these humble grains. The Hungarians really killed it with dinners that shaped our childhood, because we've got another banger on the list. Hungarian goulash was everyone's favorite cozy, hearty meal back in the day. Goulash is a hearty stew whipped up with tender chunks of beef simmered in a rich, savory sauce brimming with paprika. Yeah, paprika was huge back in the day. So why did this delicious dinner vanish from our dinner tables? Well, the Hungarian goulash traces back as far as the 10th century to stews eaten by the shepherds, so you can say this one might just have run its course. But hey, if you're ever craving goulash, dust off some old cookbooks and get to work because it really isn't hard to wump up. This is the perfect dish for a chilly night in, curled up on the couch with a good movie. Just be careful not to spill it on your mom's vintage tablecloth. Those things are irreplaceable. Roast chicken with stuffing and green beans is a meal that evokes family gatherings, holidays, and a sense of home. This classic dinner has long been a centerpiece of American dining, combining practicality with elegance. Roasting chicken is one of the oldest cooking methods, but by the 20th century, it became a weekly tradition for many households. Chickens were relatively inexpensive, easy to prepare, and, if seasoned and roasted just right, deliciously satisfying. The key to a perfect roast chicken lies in the balance: crispy, golden skin on the outside and juicy, flavorful meat inside. Stuffing or dressing, depending on your regional preference, traces back to ancient Rome. By the time it reached American kitchens, cooks used bread cubes, herbs, and sometimes vegetables to create the savory, aromatic side we know today. While traditionally cooked inside the bird, many began baking it separately for a crispier texture, what some might call progress. Green beans complete this trio, often sautéed with garlic, almonds, or a touch of bacon. They brought a fresh, vibrant contrast to the richness of the chicken and stuffing. If you roast a chicken and make stuffing, you're not just making dinner, you're making memories. And for anyone who's ever had the leftovers, the memories taste just as good the next day. Peaches and syrup are pretty much the ideal sugar rush for a boomer. They don't really do too well with all the stuff the youth drinks for beverages and sweets. I mean, Nutella cakes drizzled with chocolate syrup is a bit much, and so is a caramel frap from your local cafe. Canned peaches with syrup just hit the sweet spot perfectly, though, and it's something that takes boomers right back to their glory days in the 60s and 50s. It could be served as a dessert, eaten on its own, or paired with other sweet snacks to give you a refreshing and fruity meal. It went really well with ice cream, and it was also a must-have if you were trying any kind of fruit salad. Lots of housewives enjoyed how easy it made party preparation and the amount of variety they could get with it. You could serve up to 2 dishes made using these instead of ordering out, saving time, money, and a lot of mental energy. Peaches in syrup were not only a pantry staple, but also a symbol of convenience and creativity in the kitchen. They were a key ingredient in boomers' favorites like peach cobbler, upside-down cakes, or even Jell-O molds that were centerpieces at every potluck or party. Beyond desserts, they found their way into savory dishes too, with ham and peaches being a surprisingly popular combination. The syrup itself was a treat when poured over pancakes, waffles, or even blended into drinks for a quick burst of flavor. I truly get the boomer's vision. Steamed clams, a beloved dish especially along the coasts of New England, have been enjoyed for generations. This dish is a true celebration of seafood, as fresh clams are steamed until tender, absorbing all the flavors of the broth, often seasoned with garlic, herbs, and a splash of white wine or broth. Clams, which are bivalve mollusks, have been a staple in coastal cuisine for centuries, with Native Americans harvesting them long before European settlers arrived. The joy of eating steamed clams comes from their delicate texture and briny sweetness. The perfect clam should pop open easily when steamed, a sign that it's cooked just right. Paired with a slice of hearty brown bread and a dollop of butter, this dish becomes a complete, satisfying meal. The richness of the butter and the rustic flavor of the brown bread perfectly complement the clam's natural saltiness, creating a balanced, indulgent experience. Steamed clams with brown bread, because sometimes the best meals are the ones that come with their own dipping sauce. The dish reflects the simplicity of coastal living, proving that the freshest ingredients often make the most memorable meals. Whether served as an appetizer or a main course, steamed clams with brown bread and butter remain a timeless favorite, offering a taste of the sea with every bite. One of Grandma's best-kept secrets for luscious, shiny hair was her coconut oil hair mask. This tropical treat, rich in fatty acids, is a natural powerhouse for maintaining strong, vibrant locks. Making the mask is easy. Simply melt a couple of tablespoons of coconut oil in your hands and massage it directly into your scalp and hair. For a deeper treatment, wrap your hair in a warm towel and leave it for at least 30 minutes before washing it out. You can even leave it overnight for an extra boost of hydration. Coconut oil's benefits for hair are well known. The lauric acid in coconut oil helps it penetrate the hair shaft, nourishing from the inside out. It acts as a natural conditioner, preventing protein loss, which results in shinier, stronger hair. It also moisturizes the scalp, helping to prevent dryness and dandruff. Grandma swore by it, claiming it gave her hair the kind of shine that would make a shampoo commercial jealous. Used for centuries in tropical regions, coconut oil was an essential part of beauty routines in India, the Philippines, and the Caribbean. In fact, it's said that ancient Indian women used coconut oil long before it became popular in the Western world. We're going to take a bit of a deep dive into a cuisine that we haven't really explored before. I'm talking about caponata, which is a very traditional Sicilian dish that goes all the way back to the 18th century. It's supposed to be a sailor's dish. Can you believe that? It got that reputation attached to it because the birthplace of caponata was Sicily. There's no specific restaurant or name that's credited with making it, but if you ever went there, you'd know just how much the people appreciate this. The first time this became popular in America was when Mediterranean cuisine and Italian immigrants were mixing together and creating all sorts of new dishes, as well as bringing old familiar ones from their homeland. The best part about this dish for a lot of people was that it gave a chance to a vegetable, which otherwise people just aren't too fond of. I mean, eggplants aren't really the most main course worthy idea you could think of, right? Pair that up with some tomatoes, onions, olives, and capers and cook it in vinegar, sugar, and olive oil. Make a nice little traditional agrodolce sauce, and you'll get this extremely earthy dish with a lot of complex flavors going for it. Speaking of turnoffs, something that detracts from all the maritime goodness fish has to offer is that offensive odor that tends to come with most seafood you will catch. Funnily enough, soaking your fish in milk can quickly eliminate that issue. Look, there is no easy way to say it. It stinks, and it stinks bad. It is not something you would want with your food, much less constantly oozing out of your fridge every time you open it. Grandmas did know that fish is too essential of a superfood to just cut out of the diets of growing healthy kids, though. Naturally, they did what they do best and scoured the ends of the culinary world looking for a way to solve the problem. The answer was always much closer to them than they would think, almost right under their nose. When you soak fish in milk for about 20 minutes, it bonds with the protein in the milk and the compounds in the fish responsible for that ghastly smell stick with the beverage afterwards. When you extract it, you get a clean-tasting fish with none of that ridiculous funk. Now, mashed potatoes and gravy need no introduction or explanation. Everyone and their mother's mother has had it. But did you know how good they were at making it? Receiving this dish from the chefs of generations ago was an entirely different experience in comfort. We do not know what spices they would mix, as each area had its own variations, with some even using mushrooms. Most popular was coriander, thyme, black pepper, and some oregano. The gravy would even put KFC to shame, if we are being completely honest. You just did not feel like eating from the outside when you had such fine dining available at home, and it was the perfect thing to get you back up only our feet from an exhausting day. A recipe that is largely forgotten right now, but still made some noise back when it was really popular in the 20th century, is shrimp and grits. The secret to an incredible plate of these was all in the milk, butter, and cheddar cheese. Depending on the quality and how you handled it, you would ever have shrimp that had not really absorbed the flavor or the best seafood experience you could hope to have at home. Luckily, over many long years, the home cooks of our nation perfected the recipe and kept passing it down, one generation to the next. Some chopped bacon for a smoky flavor, or sausage drippings were also really popular picks for older chefs to run with. Grits would be made with dent corn and often boiled, then mixed with the butter and milk. How did your family make these, if they ever did? In Texas, as well as New York, rice with raisins started becoming a really popular dish among the middle class and a breakfast that many children grew up on, especially in Indian American communities, which were sparse at the time, but they were still there every other block or two. It was already customary to eat rice with milk and raisins there, so they brought it to America, and others took note. They were not the only ones to introduce it, though, since Chinese Americans also had their own take on the recipe that led to a more custard-like variant. When people could not afford to even eat rice pudding, they would make their rice and eat it with different kinds of nuts and raisins. The idea spread like wildfire in states like Alabama and Arkansas and the Midwest overall. In Michigan, it was a pretty common choice to use brown sugar and cinnamon whenever available. Cornmeal mush is usually made with water or milk and is a type of pudding or porridge depending on the needs of the meal. This became incredibly widespread in the southeastern and eastern bits of America, and it makes sense given how much wartime rations were consumed there. When the government would hand those out, they would often make a point to lower sugar usage and use molasses to conserve other ingredients, so people would pair cornmeal mush along with them. Mush is a more accurate term since it does kind of land somewhere in the middle ground between a pudding and a porridge. It has the consistency of the latter, but it gels and sets like the former, which gives it a slightly airy texture too. Did you know it would not be cooked in milk though? That was set after the mush was prepared to cool it down. Next on Grandma's list is a drink so golden it practically glows: turmeric golden milk. This soothing blend of turmeric, black pepper, ginger, and warm milk, or your favorite plant-based alternative, isn't just a bedtime treat, it's a powerhouse for your health. Turmeric, the star ingredient, contains curcumin, a compound celebrated for its potent anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Curcumin isn't easily absorbed by the body. That's where black pepper comes in, with piperine to boost absorption by up to 2,000%. Ginger adds a warming zing and further supports digestion. Combine this with milk for creaminess and a dose of calcium, and you've got a recipe that's equal parts comfort and health. It's been around for centuries, often called liquid gold. In ancient India, brides drank turmeric milk for radiant skin before their wedding day. To make it, simply whisk a teaspoon of turmeric, a pinch of black pepper, grated ginger, and your choice of milk. Sweeten it with honey if desired. Sip slowly and feel the warmth from the inside out. Grandma called it her glow drink. We call it science in a mug with a side of golden charm. Scalloped chicken casserole. Here's another classic casserole that deserves a comeback. This dish is the perfect example of simple but mouth-watering good. I mean, just imagine tender chicken pieces in a creamy sauce, seasoned to perfection, and layered with fluffy breadcrumbs. I think I'm feeling hungry now. Scalloped chicken casserole is a great way to use up leftover chicken, and it's perfect for a quick and easy weeknight meal. Not to mention, it's a dish that's sure to please even the pickiest eaters. Who can resist creamy chicken and crispy breadcrumbs? Ditch your takeout menus for a night and take a trip down memory lane by giving this casserole a try. You can find dozens of recipes on the internet, and it won't take you hours to whip up. Trust me, your taste buds will thank you. Spaghetti with meatballs and garlic bread is an iconic meal that combines Italian tradition with American innovation. While pasta with tomato sauce has roots deep in Italian cuisine, the pairing of spaghetti with meatballs became popular in the United States in the early 20th century, thanks to Italian immigrants looking to recreate familiar dishes in a new land. The meatball itself is believed to have evolved from a mix of ground meats, herbs, and breadcrumbs, often made from leftovers. In Italy, smaller meatballs were served as part of a larger meal, but when Italian-American cooks began to serve them as a standalone dish, they became the hearty centerpiece of spaghetti dinners. The combination of savory meatballs, tomato sauce, and long strands of spaghetti soon became synonymous with comfort and family meals. No spaghetti dinner would be complete without garlic bread. While garlic bread wasn't traditionally Italian, it quickly became a staple in American Italian cuisine. The golden, crispy texture of the bread, combined with the rich garlic butter, complements the pasta perfectly. One of the most classic street foods of all times is now coming to a supermarket near you in a can. At least, that's the branding they were going for with hot dogs. These pre-cooked bad boys were made with every kind of variation you could want to satisfy your hot dog craving. Pork fan? Got you covered. Chicken sausages more your style? Have no fear, every can for chump change. Want to keep it strictly American and traditional with some beef? They have that too. They also doubled as party treats because you could go all out with pigs in a blanket or cocktail hot dogs. Canned hot dogs were really a part of the culture. And I don't mean that just because the first thing you think of when you hear the word American is somebody with a hot dog next to them. See, before this, hot dogs were something that were really beloved but were still something you had to either go out for or spend some time preparing and cooking. As a result, on those lazy days, they could never break past the barrier and reach real comfort food status. That was true until canned hot dogs came along and changed the entire game up. The popularity of sausage-based dishes spiked in popularity. It wasn't just hot dogs, but they definitely benefited the highest. People were having more hot dogs than ever before, and they were not being shy about their love of it either. So, cold smoking your meat is a tried and tested method of making sure your meat lasts the long haul, no matter how rough it might get. These are techniques that have been proven to work by several cultures around the world throughout history, so you can definitely trust in their authenticity. What really is cold smoking, though? Basically, it involves exposing your meat to smoke that's from a temperature around 68 to 86 Fahrenheit, and that's a lot lower than the smoke that usually comes from warm fires. Cold smoking can't cook the meat, but what it does do is give the meat a pretty nice flavor and dry it out. We've already gone over why drying your meat out is such a good idea. But cold smoking was done via smoking chambers that were specifically built for this purpose. It was honestly a wonderful way of adding an incredible amount of flavor to your food. And thanks to coupling it with things like curing your meats with additional salts and drying them out, you get to have long-lasting, good-tasting meat for the majority of your next few months. Goulash has become a favorite in many American households, a dish that combines the comfort of macaroni with the heartiness of ground beef. Despite the name, this American version of goulash is far different from its Hungarian roots, where the original dish was a rich stew made with beef, paprika, and vegetables. The American version, often made with macaroni, tomatoes, and ground beef, became popular during the mid-20th century, particularly in households looking for a quick, filling, and affordable dinner. The beauty of goulash lies in its simplicity. Ground beef is browned and simmered with onions, garlic, and seasonings, then mixed with cooked macaroni and canned tomatoes. This one-pot meal is easy to make and adaptable to whatever ingredients are on hand, whether it's adding a dash of hot sauce, swapping tomatoes for tomato paste, or stirring in some cheese for extra richness. Goulash quickly became a go-to comfort food for busy families, and it's still a staple today. It's the kind of dish you can throw together in no time, and it always feels like a warm hug in a bowl. Speaking of how different things were in their time due to the economical strife, one thing that got really popular back when your grandparents were still young was sausage gravy and biscuits. This might seem like an outlandish combo to us today, and we admit it takes a bit of getting used to, but the magic is all in the gravy. Biscuits and gravy are already something Americans have been pretty accustomed to eating, especially in the 20th century, but innovation is one of the finer points of the country, and culinary matters are no exception. People eventually found out that using pork sausage crumbles enriched the gravy and made it irresistible, especially if they were smoked. Usually biscuits like jumbo buttermilk ones make for a great side to the dish, but even the gravy alone was worth eating on its own. This one is similarly another one you may have not only heard of, but seen, tried, and tested for yourself. Toasting spices in a pan can do wonders for their flavor. It is like steroids with athletes, except nothing about it messes up your system. Just a little bit of toasting can really bring out every last drop of flavor from whatever spices you are working with, and the end result you get is an explosively flavorful dish that packs thrice the punch you thought it would. Sounds like a pretty good deal this time too, right? Ever thought about why this happens though? You know how spices have these oils in them, and they are largely what is responsible for that banging taste we are all used to? Once you toast them, the heat starts to draw out those oils and it kind of puts them on turbo mode. Cumin gets more healthy, chilies are no longer just spicy enough to make your eyes water, but sweet and smoky too, and coriander really gets flavor. Comfort food in the 1940s could not be discussed without somebody bringing up American slumgullion. This was really hot in the Midwest and the South, mostly by its other name of goulash. The dish has been in recipes and cookbooks since at least 1913, and it would include ground beef simmered in a tomato sauce. It was a dish for nights that you really wanted to make matter, and it was also a great way to keep the nutrition and protein intake up. Think of it as like a kind of casserole, and if you have heard of it before, you should know the 1930s versions were a bit different. These ones involved no pasta or macaroni or cheese. Those would become staples of the dish much later on, and we have grandparents to thank for that too. Next in Grandma's arsenal of age-defying secrets is the green tea tonic, a drink so packed with antioxidants it's practically a superhero in a cup. Brewed from the delicate leaves of the Camellia sinensis plant, green tea has been cherished for centuries as a natural remedy for health and beauty. Steep a teaspoon of loose green tea leaves, or a bag if you prefer, in hot water for 2 to 3 minutes. For an extra twist, Grandma often added a slice of lemon or a drizzle of honey. The key is not to overbrew as it can turn bitter, and let's be honest, no one likes a bitter cup of tea or a bitter outlook on life. Green tea's benefits are vast, but for the skin, it's the high concentration of catechins, a type of antioxidant that works wonders. Catechins neutralize free radicals, those pesky molecules that damage skin cells and accelerate aging. Historically, it was first used in ancient China over 4,000 years ago as a medicinal tonic. Japanese geishas swore by green tea-infused face rinses for smooth, porcelain-like skin. Grandma always said green tea was like a gym membership for your skin, except much cheaper and infinitely more relaxing. Back in the 1950s, the Divan Parisian restaurant at Chatham Hotel in New York City gave birth to its signature dish, the chicken divan casserole. This mouth-watering dish soon found its way to all our homes, and I'm not complaining. It's made of tender chicken pieces nestled amongst vibrant green broccoli florets in a rich and creamy sauce, topped with a generous layer of melty cheese and a sprinkle of crispy breadcrumbs. The chef who leaked this recipe out to the public really took one for the team, and we can never thank him enough. It's the perfect combination of protein, veggies, and all the cheesy goodness your heart desires. Just maybe pair it with a side salad to pretend you're being healthy. Chicken divan casserole is the retro dish of every cheese lover's dreams, and you know what that calls for? A comeback. It's a classic at throwback parties, but you don't really need an excuse to cook this up. A typical Tuesday night works too. Turkey and gravy, traditionally a centerpiece of Thanksgiving but often enjoyed beyond the holiday season, holds a special place in American culinary history. Its pairing with mashed turnips, though less common today, harkens back to a time when root vegetables were staples in kitchens for their affordability and long storage life. Turkey has been an American icon since colonial days. Benjamin Franklin famously praised the bird, calling it a much more respectable bird than the bald eagle. While roasting turkey might be associated with grand feasts, smaller versions, like turkey breasts, frequently appeared on mid-century dinner tables, making the meal more practical for everyday cooking. The star of the plate, next to the turkey, is the gravy. Made from the drippings left in the pan, it's rich, savory, and ties everything together. A good gravy, as some would say, can salvage even a dry turkey. Often overshadowed by mashed potatoes, turnips were a go-to side dish in earlier generations. Packed with nutrients and a slightly peppery flavor, they offered a lighter, unique alternative to spuds. Mashed with butter, cream, or even a touch of maple syrup, they brought earthy warmth to the plate. If turkey is the headliner, gravy is the conductor, and turnips? They're the backup singers you never knew you needed. A harmonious meal indeed. Spaghetti, canned or dried, was just as available as hot dogs were, and equally in style. Again, we have to thank Chef Boyardee for doing community service on a national scale with these. Pre-cooked, tomato-based spaghetti for a few cents, canned and fresh. This is what modernization is all about. What's the point of all this fancy tech if we can't make eating food twice as easy as it usually is? Plus, you were getting some pretty good spaghetti. There were lots of concerns among new customers when this first dropped, because if something's mass-produced, it's likely that they're cutting corners somewhere or adding something to it in the name of additives and preservatives. But here, what you saw is what you got. It really is just spaghetti that could work for children or adults. People could have a cute date night at home with some spaghetti or feed their crying children immediately, and both would work. Chef Boyardee's was really the most popular pick by far for any kind of spaghetti-based dish, though. Out of all the canned spaghetti you could get, it was only Boyardee's that would have that perfect consistency. It wasn't overly tomato-y, not was it too creamy. The sauce wasn't thin, it knew how to do just enough, not too much or too little. You could reheat this in a microwave if you had one, or just pop open the stove and you'd be ready to eat a pretty serviceable plate of spaghetti. Plus, those bright red Chef Hector Boiardi pictures really worked wonders for the packaging. Just caught your eye in a store like nothing else. Would that work on you today, though? Or are we feeling lighter colors with packaging nowadays? So I know for a fact you've never heard about this one before. Animal bladders being used to vacuum pack is definitely the most ancient preservation method I have on this entire list, and this is all thanks to the natural God-gifted sealing ability of the bladder. Basically, the bladder from large animals like pigs, deer, and cows was the one people used the most because of how flexible and elastic it would be. The bladder would be taken out, cleaned, and then opened. You would then tie or stitch it after the food was packed inside, and the key to preserving this was to remove the air from inside the bladder because, again, you don't want those nasty bacteria getting any air they don't deserve. The bladder would even be inflated by people so that people could get a bit more space for the food. Plus, the vacuum effect created thanks to the bladder being removed meant that it was the ideal environment for not spoiling the food. If we talk about history, then people like early explorers and fur traders would rely on bladders for trade and would pass them to nomadic tribes and communities traveling through the areas. It was also very popular in Arctic regions. There are many risks, though, and it requires a lot of skill, because if you don't clean it properly, you just risk contamination badly. Southern skillet cornbread has been a beloved memento of the South for many decades to the rest of the nation, but in the area, it is a tradition that goes back all the way to the 18th century. History books tell us that it comes from Native American cuisine, and it makes sense since a lot of Native American cuisine was very cost-effective. It is kind of everything you would want in a home-cooked meal, easy on the wallet, simple ingredients you can find at any nearby store, and little prep time, which means you can get your cravings fulfilled immediately. Plus, most cooks back then were so accustomed to it from a lifetime of making cornbread in these cast iron skillets that they could make it much faster than even an experienced cook. Guess experience counts for something, especially when you have 40 to 50 years of it, right? This recipe really made a name for itself during the mid-1930s to 40s when people were facing a dire shortage of eggs. Still, if you did not have even some potatoes on hand but still wanted a pancake to cheer your kids up, you would go for eggless pancakes. Some shortening, sugar, milk, and salt were all you needed to make this version of the beloved American dish, plus just some water to bind if you could not find any milk to spare. Lucky were the homes that had lard, as that really made for some fluffy and thick cakes, but complaining was not really something people did during those times. A simple recipe like this let them revisit the taste of pancakes from back when they had fully stocked fridges, after all. Brown Betties were one of the most classic American desserts to ever grace the table of an American kid. Something that might be seen as an old-fashioned dessert now, but used to be the next best thing after an apple pie. The flavors of a Brown Betty usually come from the spiced apples and other fruit-layered dishes, which are really buttery. The sugary breadcrumbs on top give it a crunch, which really adds to the entire vibe of the Brown Betty. You're looking for a warm, comforting dish that gets you in a nostalgic mood. Something you can sit down with and enjoy bite for bite, not rush through. It's an experience that you want to savor, like an empty, windy street as you walk down by and enjoy it. The Brown Betty was definitely something that would get you up out into the street, whether you were going to visit your grandma's for an authentic pie or a nearby bakery to reminisce about childhood days. The earliest recipes you can find are the ones from 1866, but those are more like Apple Betties than the ones we're talking about. Either way, this dish has definitely evolved alongside the population, and those who grew up with it will remember it fondly. Another staple in Grandma's wellness routine was her love for herbal teas. She swore by brews like chamomile, dandelion root, and nettle, claiming these natural infusions were her secret to detoxifying, nourishing, and keeping her skin clear. To make these teas, all you need are dried herbs. For chamomile, steep a teaspoon of flowers in hot water for 5 minutes. For dandelion root, simmer it in water for about 10 minutes to draw out its earthy, slightly bitter flavor. And for nettle, use a teaspoon of dried leaves in hot water for 5 to 7 minutes. Chamomile is best known for its calming properties, but it also contains antioxidants that help fight skin inflammation. Dandelion root acts as a natural detoxifier, flushing out toxins and improving liver function, which can help keep your skin clear. Nettle, rich in vitamins A, C, and K, supports blood circulation and reduces puffiness. These herbs have been used for centuries in various cultures. Chamomile was revered by the ancient Egyptians, while dandelion root has roots in traditional Chinese medicine. Nettle has been called a beauty herb for centuries, not just for its medicinal qualities, but because it's believed to give skin a healthy glow. Chicken fried steak. This classic is long gone but never forgotten. This one's pretty easy to make too. All you need is a chicken steak dredged in a seasoned flour mixture, dipped in a wet batter, and finally coated in a crispy breading. Fry till it's golden brown for the perfect dinner that'll leave you wanting more. Chicken fried steak is typically served with a creamy gravy for dipping, along with mashed potatoes and vegetables for a complete and oh-so-satisfying meal. It is basically American, and the yassified version of the Austrian dish Wiener Schnitzel, and the Italian dish cotoletta alla Milanese. Fancy names, but the same old fried chicken steak. Now I know what you're thinking. Why did this crispy golden goodness leave us too soon? Well, you can trick yourself all you want, but it's not the healthiest dinner out there. But hey, having a fried steak once in a while can't do much harm, right? Just be prepared for some finger-licking good action. This dish is messy, but in the best way possible. A true testament to how simple ingredients can create something extraordinary, corn pudding casserole with a sweet custard base is a comforting classic. With its rich, custardy texture and subtle sweetness, it's a comforting side that's just as at home at Thanksgiving as it is at a Sunday family dinner. Corn pudding has roots in early American cooking, influenced by Native American corn-based dishes like succotash. However, the casserole version, often made with a combination of cornmeal, eggs, milk, and sugar, emerged in the 19th century as settlers began adapting recipes to make use of what was readily available. The sweet custard base, made with eggs and cream or milk, gives the dish its signature smooth, slightly sweet texture that contrasts perfectly with the corn kernels. It's also a dish that evolved with convenience in mind. As canned creamed corn became widely available in the mid-20th century, many home cooks began using it to simplify preparation without sacrificing flavor. Corn pudding is a crowd pleaser, and its versatility allows for adjustments. Some might add a touch of cheese, while others prefer to keep it pure. If we move on over to the kids' menu for a second, we'll find alphabet spaghetti, every boomer parent's dream food. The dish was simply canned tomato sauce pasta, but the pasta spelled out the alphabet. It's a little educational, a little tasty, and pretty cheap. Its best quality is easily that it could be paired with a number of things like toast, ham, or sausages, and you could even mix some peas and corn in there for a bit of a nutritional kick. It was a favorite for families with lots of children, and back in the day, that was pretty much every family. Hooray for Planned Parenthood, I guess. You could also serve it up plain as it is, but that was more for kids that had already acquired a finer palate, which happily included pasta. Most kids were still eating mud from the playground, really. The playful shapes and vibrant sauce weren't just meals, they were fun on a plate. Parents loved how easy it was to prepare, especially after a long day, and kids were entertained while eating. It wasn't uncommon for families to turn dinner time into a mini spelling game, laughing at the words the spaghetti created. For parents looking to stretch their budget, these cans were lifesavers. They packed enough carbs to keep growing kids full and satisfied. Plus, it made vegetables like peas and corn just a little more bearable for picky eaters. This quirky meal became a symbol of simpler times, where dinner didn't need to be fancy to be memorable. On the other hand, pemmican is a traditional food developed by indigenous peoples of North America. They were a very ideal way to preserve meat, fat, and berries all in one for long-term storage, and it's probably one of the earliest examples we have of portable food that was put in a compact form because it needed to. It was ideal for travel, trading, and quick consumption, all factors that American industries and companies would keep in mind going forward. How does all this work, though? Bison, deer, and elk are all good sources of lean meat and were herded by indigenous peoples for a long time. All the meat from these animals would be dried, either through sun-drying it or through smoking it. In place of that, rendered fat like tallow would be mixed with the powdered dried meat, and this would seal the meat, preventing any air from interacting with it and excess moisture ruining the drying process. Berries also would contain acidic compounds and antioxidants that would help kill microbe activity overall and help reduce spoilage, and the final mix of this would be molded into cakes and balls and put into compact containers. If you made pemmican properly, it could actually last all year or even more than that, and it was packed with all kinds of nutrition that were important for a nomadic lifestyle. In short, this was a wonder food, and it was built to take care of everything you would need nutritionally. Pot roasts have been as much a part of the grand scheme of American culture and cuisine as anything else on this dish, and each area, state, and neighborhood has their own ideas of what one should look like. Were you the kind of kid that grew up on beef chuck roast, potatoes, a beefy broth, and carrots in your roast? Maybe you had boneless chuck roast, olive oil, bay leaves, and stuff like that instead. These are just the few variations you can expect to find when it comes to a good, well-done pot roast. The perfect party snack or a great one to pull out for an incredibly large family dinner with the in-laws and extended family, this is one dish that never fails to pull through, especially when a seasoned cook is behind it. Just like breadcrumbs have become synonymous with providing the perfect golden, crunchy exterior, crushed cornflakes have the same reputation from our grandparents' days. Most things you would add this to, like chicken fillets or strips, would get significantly more crunchier and crispier, and the coating did not taste as much like cereal as you were thinking it would. It actually just tasted like pretty good skin, the kind that crumbles and falls apart in your mouth as you bite into it. Probably the biggest benefit of your grandma cooking things up this way was that it really cut down on the grease factor. That can leave even the most loyal, crispy chicken lover feeling bloated, oily, and a little turned off for the day. Oatmeal went out the window and cornmeal came in, especially as the base of dishes like Johnny cakes, which were the cravings of everyone. They were made from fried cornmeal gruel, hot water, salt, or sweetened milk if it was available. People used a specific kind of pan to make these too, and it was known as a spider pan. Essential to the Johnny cake experience was keeping a very watchful eye on them to ensure the crisp did not burn, as well keeping a constant supply of bacon fat. That was another thing that got popular as people would store the fat from strips of bacon up and use it in dishes like this. In half an hour, you had a pretty decent lunch made with some pretty bare-bones ingredients. Every morning, Grandma had her trusty honey and lemon water. It was her daily ritual for hydration, detoxification, and a bright, healthy glow. This simple concoction is made by mixing the juice of half a lemon and a teaspoon of raw honey into a warm glass of water. The warmth enhances the release of lemon's vitamin C, while the honey's natural enzymes and antioxidants remain intact. Together, they create a harmonious blend that's as healing as it is hydrating. Honey and lemon water works wonders for your skin. Lemon's vitamin C is a key player in collagen production, reducing wrinkles and improving skin elasticity. Meanwhile, honey's antimicrobial properties help combat acne and soothe irritation. This duo has been cherished for centuries. Ancient Egyptians used honey as a natural healer, while lemons have been prized in Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine for their cleansing properties. During the 18th century, sailors carried lemons to prevent scurvy. Not for skincare, but it probably didn't hurt their complexions either. Grandma swore by it, calling it her liquid sunshine. And honestly, who wouldn't want a glow as bright as hers, without the expensive skincare aisle drama? The tasty meat pie isn't your average store-bought pie. We're talking about a savory masterpiece filled with delicious goodness. This used to be a classic at Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners back in the day before hash brown casseroles came to take the cake. But tasty meat pies had their own beauty. Imagine a flaky golden brown crust with a filling of seasoned ground meat, chopped vegetables like carrots and peas, and a rich, flavorful gravy. The origins of the meat pie have been traced back to the Neolithic period around 6000 BC. Yeah, even the Egyptians were a fan of this classic. It's perfect for a potluck, a family dinner, or even a cozy night in. The best part? Its portability. Just grab a slice and head out the door. It's the ultimate dinner on the go. With a name that evokes a French bistro and a flavor that feels like home-cooked comfort, chicken fricassee bridges the gap between elegance and nostalgia. This classic combines tender chicken with a creamy, flavorful sauce and an assortment of vegetables. The roots of chicken fricassee lie in French cuisine, with the term fricassee appearing as early as the 15th century. What sets it apart is the technique. Chicken pieces are first browned lightly, then simmered slowly in a sauce that often blends broth, cream, and a touch of white wine. Julia Child famously described it as halfway between a sauté and a stew. And if Julia said it, it must be true. Vegetables like carrots, celery, mushrooms, and pearl onions elevate the dish, adding texture and natural sweetness to complement the savory chicken. In many American households, this meal became a way to transform humble ingredients into something elegant. While its name might sound intimidating, chicken fricassee is surprisingly practical. It's one pot, easy to make, and the leftovers taste even better the next day, if they survive that long. Fricassee is the dish that makes you feel like you've been to Paris, even if your passport expired decades ago. Golden syrup is this really thick sugar syrup that is pretty accurately named because, wow, this thing has a vibrantly strong amber hue. That kind of fits the taste of the syrup too. When I see amber-colored things, especially sweet ones, my mind goes straight to caramel. Does that happen for you too? We'd both be right though, since the syrup was caramel flavored. It also had a sweetener that really sealed the whole deal together, wrapped in a neat little bow. You could use this for so many things, like making your porridge a bit more lively with this, adding it to desserts for some extra oomph, or using it as a drizzle over buttermilk pancakes. The possibilities covered breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so you can see why every boomer's home had this in their pantry. A lot of easy and no-fuss baking recipes like flapjacks and tarts were pretty much reliant on this syrup, and for good reason too. This thing really tasted amazing. If you were going on over to your grandparents for a casual Christmas or Thanksgiving visit, you may have been surprised to find that the dinner table was anything but casual, with delicacies like squash casserole. Creamy, crunchy, and filled with cheddar cheese and crackers, it is an all-time favorite that has been a staple of holidays and birthdays in many households. It was more popular to correctly reflect past tense in the 20th century, which explains why you would usually only find your grandparents making it, and back then, it would be very common to have this at potlucks. Some households still have it at theirs, but the trend has taken a bit of nosedive with the cracker and cheese combo taking a bit of a backseat. That only goes for if you are ordering a squash casserole from a restaurant though, because from the hands of any American granny, it was a dish impossible to resist. Too much raisins can be pretty bad for you despite what clickbait articles on the internet or Instagram info dumps will have you believe, unless you cook them the right way, which is by soaking them in some hot water before you get to baking. Something you must have noticed by now, whether we are dealing with fried chicken and pizza or rice and ground beef patties, is that every kind of food has the potential to get significantly better depending on the prep. If you just take a little bit of time out to add some things, soak them, place them in a proper container, and try a few hacks, then you can find yourself having a much better dish. In this case, the hot water makes them plumpier and amps up their properties as a natural laxative. You the type to struggle with digestion? This is a hack for you, plus all the other benefits like taming your sweet cravings or boosting your bone strength. Seems like Grandma really did know what was best for our bodies. When you hear the word umami, you naturally think of everything savory and typically found in main courses. Very few people realize that anything with cocoa, in this instance chocolate, also has that flavor. So what is the best way to bring it out of your chocolate? Adding some soy sauce into it can really intensify it because of the saltiness from the sauce. Try this out the next time you bake a cake, truffles, or even cookies and brownies. We know they do not seem like they would go together, but very few things look like a perfect pair until you put the combo into practice. And this is a tried and true one after all. Potatoes had more use than just what was under all the layers. Once peeled, people would often fry the potato skins as a midday snack. Nothing would ever go to waste in homes back then, as you must have gathered by now. If they can make stuff out of sausage drippings and drain the fat from bacon to reuse, frying up some potato skins does not seem that out of the box at all. These fried skins were the perfect sidekick to potato pancakes, and the fact that the skins had a lot of health benefits made it all the more appealing. Things like this really helped to keep appetites in check, and that meant that the financial situation of the home would be calmer too. If you take a look at the history of Brooklyn, you'll find something that was really popular, which was ham cheese balls. These were the perfect bite-sized appetizer to gorge yourself on while you waited for the main meal. A lot of grandmas would have handwritten notes tacked onto family cookbooks about how to make the perfect ham ball, what the ratio of meat was, how much cheese you needed to put in, how much you needed to roll them and shape them before they were perfect. It was one of those snacks that just did well everywhere. In Iowa, too, it was one of the most easily available snacks you could find anywhere in the state. All in all, it's one of the best things to ever come out of the Midwest. And no Christmas is honestly complete until you down a platter of ham cheese balls and make the tray look spotless. Have you ever grown up around these? Do you still remember the taste? It's not something you would find so often nowadays, but the days when it was really everywhere were some good ones. Grandma's skincare routine wasn't complete without her oatmeal scrub. This humble yet effective exfoliator, made with pantry staples like oats, honey, and yogurt, was her tried-and-true method to keep her skin smooth and glowing. Creating it is straightforward. Start with 2 tablespoons of finely ground oatmeal. Mix in a tablespoon of honey and add enough plain yogurt to form a thick paste. Gently massage it onto your face in circular motions. Let it sit for a few minutes and rinse with warm water. The result is skin so soft, you'll wonder why you ever bothered with store-bought scrubs. Oatmeal is the hero here. acting as a natural exfoliant that gently removes dead skin cells while soothing irritation. Honey contributes its antibacterial and moisturizing properties, while yogurt, rich in lactic acid, helps to brighten the skin and even out-tone. Oats have been used for centuries, even in ancient Egypt and Rome, to treat skin conditions and maintain softness. Oatmeal baths were a go-to remedy for itchy skin long before modern dermatology. Grandma used to say, "Why spend a fortune at the spa when breakfast ingredients do the job just fine?" And frankly, after trying this scrub, it's hard to argue with her logic. Remember when your mom used to whip you up lunch for school along with a heartfelt note and a sweet treat? Meat and potato patties were a staple back in the day and a hit in the lunchbox. If you've got some leftover mashed potatoes lying around, you've got to try these. Yeah, these are basically patties made out of mashed potatoes combined with seasoned ground meat, shaped into little discs, and fried till golden brown. They pair perfectly with ketchup, your favorite dipping sauce, or even a dollop of sour cream for a tangy twist. Meat and potato patties are the ultimate finger food that is still a hit to this day. Well, with McDonald's French fries on the rise, these really don't make an appearance that often, but you can whip these patties up anytime. They're surprisingly easy to make. Just give your mom a call and ask for the recipe. No dish says Sunday dinner like a pot roast simmering away, filling the house with the unmistakable aroma of comfort. Pot roast was an event, the centerpiece of countless family gatherings. Originating in France, pot au feu inspired what we now call pot roast, combining tougher cuts of beef with slow cooking to create something tender and flavorful. In America, the pot roast became a household favorite thanks to its practicality. Chuck roast, brisket, or round, these cuts weren't fancy, but with the magic of a Dutch oven or slow cooker, they transformed into melt-in-your-mouth perfection. Carrots, potatoes, and onions balanced the rich beef with earthy sweetness and hearty texture. The beauty of pot roast is its patience. It doesn't demand attention, just time. It's a dish that rewards you for slowing down, a rarity in today's grab-and-go world. As one home cook joked, it's the only dish that cooks itself while you're watching Sunday football. And we shall not forget the gravy, a pot roast's crowning glory. Thickened with pan drippings, it's the glue that holds this masterpiece together. If love had a flavor, pot roast might just be it. Pineapples were starting to grow outside of Hawaii, and dare I say they built up a pretty serious fan base for themselves over the years. The PR here was insane. They went from being a fruit that people thought was only good in the summers to suddenly being featured with pizzas, sandwiches, fish, and God knows what else. You had pineapple upside-down cakes, or pineapples and ham, or even sweet and sour pork. The list was endless. This was a complete 360 from its usual position in the culture too, and it was really sudden. By the way, the 350 thing wasn't a pun, because you know the pineapples came in round 360-degree rings. Anyway, moving on. My personal theory is that the pricing and the need for cooler foods that broke away from the typical trends of savory, warm, and spicy were becoming more and more necessary. And, well, the people spoke for themselves and with their wallets. A big block to mass pineapple consumption was also that cracking one open simply took more effort than a lot of people were willing to spare for a tropical fruit they only kinda enjoyed. It's the same deal as people who don't bother with crab because it's just a pain to break open the legs to scoop a little bit of meat. Luckily, canned pineapples were the final nail in the coffin for complaints like that, because now you could just pop open a can and begin snacking away. No arrangement, tools, or slicing and dicing needed. If you would bury root vegetables in the crown, then you were literally taking advantage of the natural regulation of the earth. This was a common practice that people did to keep vegetables as fresh as they could be and extend their shelf life, and it was something you'd see a lot throughout the winter. Basically, in the colder months, since the ground tends to maintain a consistently cool temperature, it helps slow the metabolic process of most vegetables down. This helps to stave off the decaying process, but the temperature of the soil during the winter is actually a lot lower than you think. It's literally just a few degrees Fahrenheit above the freezing point, and this way, not only do you get to preserve your fruit, but the overall nutritional content and texture get preserved too. Most vegetables also really need to be hydrated properly, or they'll shrivel up and die, and soil acts as a natural wellspring of moisture, so you get that covered easily. As far as your dairy needs go, condensed canned milk was right up there with regular old chocolate milk. People would grab a bottle or can on their way to work for a quick drink to freshen up their mood, and it would work every time. Lots of happier dentists in that era, too. Typically, you got these in 14-ounce cans, but the best part was that it didn't really require refrigeration, which wasn't exactly too common during the time of boomers. Some of the best brands to buy from were Borden's or Elsie the Cow. Actually, they were pretty much the only brands to buy from. Any store would have Borden's face front and other brands stacked in the back, which is ever so subtle, but the message was loud and clear. So, it looks good, it costs nothing, and it tastes awesome, but what's it actually made out of? Well, this milk was made by taking out a bit more than half of the water from the whole milk and then adding sugar to preserve it. You got some pretty rich milk that way, but no one was really buying this just to drink raw milk, even if that was part of it. The thing is, this made baking so much easier since you had good fresh milk closer to you than ever before. You no longer needed to buy whole milk from one shop. Everyone could just go to whatever store was nearest for them and get to make whatever they wanted. Lemon meringue pies or cookies, whatever you'd need was suddenly so much easier. It goes a long way towards awakening people to their inner chef when you give them almost MasterChef levels of access to good ingredients. Canned Spanish rice with tomatoes and green peppers, a flavorful side dish that has graced American tables for decades. Despite its name, it's actually more of a Mexican-American creation, born out of the fusion of traditional Spanish and Mexican cooking. The rich, savory base comes from simmering rice in a seasoned tomato sauce, with green peppers adding a touch of sweetness and color. The origins of Spanish rice can be traced to the influence of the Spanish in Mexico during the colonial period. The use of rice as a staple ingredient spread throughout Latin America, evolving into countless variations. In the United States, especially during the mid-20th century, Spanish rice became a popular side dish to accompany everything from tacos to fried chicken. The addition of green peppers, onions, and garlic to the dish added layers of flavor that made it even more satisfying. Spanish rice with tomatoes and peppers is the side dish that's just as colorful as it is delicious. So much flavor, it almost steals the show. It's a versatile, easy-to-make dish that always pairs well with a variety of main courses. Biscuits and sausage gravy. Okay. This southern staple might still be a thing in some parts of the country, but let's be real, biscuits and sausage gravy is definitely not dominating breakfast menus anymore. I guess waffles are to blame for that. But this breakfast legend is the perfect combination of fluffy buttermilk biscuits so light and airy they practically melt in your mouth, along with a creamy sausage gravy, rich with savory sausage and speckled with black pepper. This is a breakfast, or hey, no judgment here, even a dinner combination that's pure comfort food heaven. From the perfect hangover cure to a delicious weekend treat, biscuits and sausage gravy satisfy all cravings. Just maybe lay off the white clothes while you're indulging. That sausage gravy can be a bit enthusiastic when it comes to staining. After a long day, Grandma swore by her lavender and Epsom salt bath, the ultimate remedy to relax, unwind, and detoxify the body. She'd draw a warm bath, adding a generous handful of Epsom salt and a few drops of lavender essential oil. The Epsom salt dissolved, releasing magnesium, while the lavender filled the air with a soothing fragrance that helped calm her mind. Epsom salt is made up of magnesium sulfate, a natural compound that's known for its ability to reduce stress and relax muscles. Lavender, on the other hand, is a well-known stress reliever with calming properties, helping to improve sleep quality and reduce anxiety. Together, they created the perfect combination for a peaceful, restorative experience. Grandma believed that this bath not only helped her body relax, but also rejuvenated her skin by drawing out toxins. Used for centuries in both bath rituals and medicinal practices, this bath was Grandma's way of taking a moment for herself. The benefits are not just mental. The magnesium in Epsom salt helps to soften skin, while lavender works as an anti-inflammatory agent. So when Grandma said, "A bath a day keeps the stress away," she was onto something pretty powerful. Add this simple ritual to your routine, and you might just feel like you found your personal spa at home. So this is a bit of a tricky name to pronounce even when you give it a genuine try, but it's worth knowing about this dish because of how good it is. Ballymaloe Irish lamb stew is something that comes all the way from County Cork, and lamb stew is something that Americans welcome with very open arms. You can particularly find this dish being spread in droves around St. Patrick's Day in any Irish-American community. Whether you're in New Hampshire or Rhode Island, which even today have a pretty solid amount of Irishmen living in them, you're bound to run into a Ballymaloe stew once in a while. Despite how good of a stew it is, with tender carrots, potatoes, and tender strips of lamb, and how simple the preparation is since it relies mostly on the natural flavors present in the ingredients, this dish actually flopped once before. Well, I wouldn't say it was a true flop, but it did fade out of the memory of the general public before too. That was before the 20th century, but ever since then it has been seeing a bit of a revival thanks to social media and Ballymaloe House, which is what it's named after. Either way, this is one of the best recipes to ever come out of a family cookbook. And if you've ever had one while at an Irish friend's home, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Potatoes had more use than just what was under all the layers. Once peeled, people would often fry the potato skins as a midday snack. Nothing would ever go to waste in homes back then, as you must have gathered by now. If they can make stuff out of sausage drippings and drain the fat from bacon to reuse, frying up some potato skins does not seem that out of the box at all. These fried skins were the perfect sidekick to potato pancakes, and the fact that the skins had a lot of health benefits made it all the more appealing. Things like this really helped to keep appetites in check, and that meant that the financial situation of the home would be calmer too. Here is a dish that you have probably heard of one too many times but never gotten enough of: meatloaf with mashed potatoes. Let's just say that comfort cooking really does not get much higher than this, nor more relaxing. Sitcoms, movies, and comedies across the decades that depict middle-class families always have somebody serving up a killer meatloaf, and it is for good reason. Our generation's parents always grew up eating a hearty meatloaf with a side of perfectly mushy soft potatoes, so it is no wonder that they kept the custom going. Today, mashed potatoes have an 85% popularity rate, which even beats hamburgers and cheeseburgers. You would think that those would be America's top one, but it seems nothing can beat Gran's meatloaf classics. Sometimes your fridge gets a due date for the scrapyard much earlier than it should. Sometimes the gas runs out and you are left debating a crisis. Do I let all my frozen stuff, my protein, and my milk go to waste? Or do I take some inspiration from my ancestors and try a neat little milk preservation hack? The next time you find yourself on the edge of a dairy disaster, try placing your bottled milk in a bowl of cold water. This next step is baby levels of difficulty. All you need is a wet cloth placed around the edges. Gets rid of those nasty bacteria, gets rid of your milk gone stale worries. We think it is an all-around win-win. A lot of the recipes from the times of our parents come from the Depression and from when America was recovering from it, but things like baked ziti is what they would whip up when they had a bit of money in their pocket. Some cooked ziti, ricotta cheese, eggs, and spaghetti sauce meant for an incredibly easy and amazing pasta. If you had the Parmesan to spare, you could also sprinkle it on or add a melted layer as a topping. It did not take too long to make, and it tasted very different from regular pasta or spaghetti and meatballs, which was a recipe favored by moms more than grandmas. The real highlight of the dish is in the shape of the ziti, since they end up being these 25 to 30 centimeter tubes. When they turn into soft pasta, they become great for chewing and work really well with the cheese. Grandmas would always spice it up with some beef or duck here and there, though. The typical scrambled eggs breakfast has been more or less a national tradition for so many years, it is impossible to tell where it really started. Low-key, small-time diners, high-tier French-American restaurants, and steakhouses all serve some kind of variation on eggs, including scrambled-ons. Hence, what do you do to add a little bit of variety, texture, and a bit of spaz to this classical option? If mayonnaise can work wonders for a burger, why not try it here? No, seriously, you'd be surprised. We know most people never make the link between eggs and mayo, but they can actually make them so much more fluffier and add this nice creamy texture too. If you do not believe us, then just search up any grandma's recipe for mayo eggs. Do not knock it till you try it. Are you a big fan of deli food? Deli meats, sandwiches, loaves, that kind of thing? Then one of the best parts of that kind of eating was the olive loaf. It was usually made with pork and beef plus chopped green olives, which is what it became known for. There was a small, brief period before convenience foods started taking over America, where processed meats were really becoming a thing, and this dish was a big part of that time, which arguably spanned all over the 1940s to the 1970s. It had an extremely loyal fan base too, as this was responsible for many deli counters still staying in business. These days, you could find retro stalls that still do a mean olive load, but the days where this was a commonplace item on the street and something you'd see your grandma cooking up are long gone in America's history. People definitely remember the flavors of the bologna, the ham loaves, and all the amazing dips they came with, though. Here's one of Grandma's most treasured secrets: fermented foods. Whether it was tangy kimchi, crisp sauerkraut, or creamy yogurt, these probiotic-rich staples were her secret weapon for a healthy gut and a glowing complexion. Fermentation is the art of controlled spoilage, where natural bacteria break down sugars and starches, creating lactic acid. This process not only preserves the food, but also boosts its nutritional value. For example, kimchi, a spicy Korean cabbage dish, is loaded with vitamins A, B, and C, while sauerkraut is a gut-friendly powerhouse packed with fiber and antioxidants. Yogurt, made by fermenting milk with live cultures, provides calcium, protein, and billions of probiotics to support digestion. But the benefits go beyond the gut. A healthy microbiome reduces inflammation throughout the body, including your skin. By balancing bacteria, fermented foods can calm acne, redness, and even eczema. Interestingly, fermented foods date back thousands of years. Ancient Romans had their own version of sauerkraut, while Indian households perfected curd yogurt. Cleopatra supposedly credited her radiant skin to bathing in sour milk, which is rich in lactic acid. The tasty meat pie isn't your average store-bought pie. We're talking about a savory masterpiece filled with delicious goodness. This used to be a classic at Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners back in the day before hash brown casseroles came to take the cake. But tasty meat pies had their own beauty. Imagine a flaky, golden brown crust with a filling of seasoned ground meat, chopped vegetables like carrots and peas, and a rich, flavorful gravy. The origins of the meat pie have been traced back to the Neolithic period, around 6000 BC. Yeah, even the Egyptians were a fan of this classic. It's perfect for a potluck, a family dinner, or even a cozy night in. The best part? Its portability. Just grab a slice and head out the door. It's the ultimate dinner on the go. Swiss steak. A dish that's neither Swiss nor a steak, but somehow it has become a classic on American dinner tables. The name Swiss refers to the technique of Swissing, a process of tenderizing tougher cuts of beef like round steak by pounding or rolling it out. The result is a melt-in-your-mouth meal that feels far fancier than its humble beginnings. This dish gained popularity in mid-century America, when home cooks needed to stretch their budgets. By slow-cooking tenderized beef in a rich tomato-based sauce, the flavors could develop while turning inexpensive cuts into something extraordinary. Onions were essential, adding sweetness and depth to the tangy tomatoes. The result was a savory, satisfying dish perfect for ladling over mashed potatoes, rice, or even buttered noodles. Tomatoes, a key player in Swiss steak, were a practical choice. Canned tomatoes, first popularized in the early 1900s, made this dish accessible year-round. Who can resist the sight of those onions caramelizing in the skillet before being smothered in sauce? One could say Swiss steak is the Cinderella story of the food world. It starts tough, a little rough around the edges, but with a little care and time, it transforms into something utterly irresistible. Proof that sometimes slow and steady wins the race. As goofy as this name sounds, and please bear with me because I really can't say spork and spief without chuckling, it was actually a legit idea for an afternoon lunch. Before that, though, let's get into what it is. Spork is basically just canned processed pork, and beef is exactly the same. But beef? I want whoever named these to win some kind of award. I'm not even sure if there's a category for best product names out there, but if there is, this guy should win. Luckily for this, the name wasn't the only thing it had going for it. It was really a lot like Spam, and it was affordable, easy to take around with you in your bag, and even easier to prepare since it was all pre-made. We're going to go into it in detail later, but this was really similar in texture and taste to Spam, just minus the tropical elements. It was a shelf staple. If you had a can of this and 2 slices of bread, you could pretty much make a sandwich today. See all those 10-step sandwich recipes on TikTok that ask you to go get a giant loaf of bread? Out with that, in with this. Bring back convenient sandwich making. Plus, Speef and Spork were really good because they were so versatile. It was even a competitor to Spam because you could pretty much pair this with any classic breakfast or dish that was typical for Americans and get to eating. It was a great way to liven up some meals that were otherwise good but had gotten pretty monotonous thanks to being such regular mainstays at American tables. Speef was definitely the better option for families though, since it was a mix of beef and pork sometimes as well. You could make some banger casseroles off of this. Just buying and using olive oil isn't enough. You need to also seal it properly, which can help the olive oil maintain its overall flavor. Why do you need to do this? Well, again, oxidation. Get used to it, man. We're going to be hearing a lot of it. It basically ruins the vibe of your olive oil completely because it destroys the compounds that give the oil its flavor, aroma, and health benefits, and basically means you waste your money. The fatty acids you have in your olive oil do not click well with oxygen at all. So the next question is, how do you store your olive oil properly? Now, the best thing to do is just to use an airtight container that doesn't let any kind of oxygen in. You want to ideally be using tight-fitting lids or glass bottles with tight caps. Tin over plastic is also pretty okay. You'd want to store the olive oil in a tin container though. The best thing is actually to get a dark container because this is the lesser-known fact about olive oil. Light, well, more so, the UV rays in light actually help to degrade olive oil by making oxidation a lot easier. You want to ideally store your olive oil in containers with dark colors that can limit the amount of light exposure it gets. Have you ever noticed how people have dark green jars and usually store their olive oil in small quantities? Yeah, now you know why? Smoked fish pie is a dish that combines comfort with bold, smoky flavor. Popular in the United Kingdom and other coastal regions, this hearty pie features a blend of tender smoked fish, often cod, haddock, or salmon, cooked in a creamy sauce, all tucked beneath a rich mashed potato crust. This combination of smokiness and creaminess is balanced perfectly by the smooth texture of mashed potatoes, creating a dish that feels both indulgent and satisfying. The origins of smoked fish pie trace back to the tradition of using smoked fish as a preservation method, particularly in maritime cultures. Smoking fish was an effective way to keep it fresh for longer periods, and the technique made its way into home cooking as a flavorful method for adding depth to dishes. The mashed potato crust, a beloved comfort food component, serves as the ultimate topping, golden and crispy on top, soft and fluffy on the inside. It's a dish that's rich in history and flavor, offering a unique twist on traditional pies. Smoked fish pie with mashed potato crust brings together the best of both worlds, seafood and comfort, making it a dish that's sure to please the whole family. Now, Swiss steak is like a warm hug from the past. This dish is all about slow-cooked, fall-apart tender beef bathed in a tangy tomato sauce. Think slow cooker vibes, but way before slow cookers were even a thing. Now, the Swiss steak is all about patience. The longer you simmer the beef, the more melt-in-your-mouth delicious it becomes. It's also the perfect way to use up that tougher cut of meat you accidentally grabbed at the store. If you grew up thinking this dish was from Switzerland, as the name suggests, now would be a good time for me to tell you your whole life was a lie. This technique of cooking up tender meat came from England, so they're the ones to thank for this meaty goodness. I can just imagine the satisfying experience of cutting through that tender beef with minimal effort. Swiss steak, a dinnertime classic that deserves a comeback. Where do I sign the petition? Grandma was a firm believer in the magic of castor oil, and not just for dry skin. She always kept a little bottle handy for one of her best-kept beauty secrets, promoting the growth of lush, thick eyelashes and brows. Applied nightly, castor oil helped give her lashes that extra boost naturally. Castor oil is derived from the seeds of the castor bean plant. It's rich in ricinoleic acid, a fatty acid that penetrates the skin and helps stimulate circulation to hair follicles, promoting healthy hair growth. Grandma would carefully apply a small amount of castor oil to her lashes and brows using a clean spoolie or cotton swab before bed. Over time, she noticed fuller, stronger lashes that were the envy of everyone. Used for centuries, castor oil has roots in ancient Egyptian beauty routines. Cleopatra herself was said to have used it to maintain her famously dramatic eyes. Grandma used to say, "If it worked for Cleopatra, it can work for you." Not only does castor oil promote hair growth, but it also helps to nourish and hydrate the skin around the eyes, reducing the appearance of fine lines. So, you get both thicker lashes and healthier skin, all in one little bottle. Collard greens and ham hocks have been a combo that has very faithfully stood the passing of time, and we think it is partly due to all the different takes on it that families keep coming up with. You hear cabbage and your heart does not exactly burst with excitement, but collard greens is another story. Pair it up with smoky ham hocks and you have yourself a meal on a budget like no other. A ham hock itself is a portion of bone with connective tissue and some meat that is covered in fat and skin, and the other name for these is pork knuckles. With some sweet onions, garlic, and chicken broth, this was a recipe that would give any other dish a run for its money, and it was great for your diet too. Gotta make sure your grandkids grow up right and proper after all. Among Grandma's timeless secrets, aloe vera gel was her go-to solution for almost every skin concern. This simple, transparent gel, extracted from the leaves of the aloe vera plant, is a botanical marvel with a history stretching back over 6,000 years. Harvesting aloe vera is as straightforward as it gets. You cut a mature leaf from the plant, slice it open lengthwise, and scoop out the clear, jelly-like substance inside. This fresh gel can be applied directly to the skin or stored in the fridge for a cooling treat on a hot day. Aloe vera is rich in vitamins A, C, and E, all of which are antioxidants that combat free radicals and help repair skin damage. It also contains polysaccharides, which stimulate collagen production, promoting skin elasticity and reducing fine lines. The gel's natural hydrating properties soothe irritation, heal minor burns, and even fade scars. Think of it as nature's all-in-one skincare product, no preservatives required. During World War II, it was used to treat radiation burns because of its remarkable healing abilities. Grandma loved to joke that aloe vera was the cheapest therapist she ever had. Smooth, soothing, and always there when you need it. Few meals capture the essence of Southern cooking like fried chicken with cornbread and collard greens. Each component has a rich history that has shaped American culinary traditions, and together they create a trifecta of flavor, texture, and nostalgia. Fried chicken, with its golden, crispy crust and tender interior, dates back centuries. European immigrants brought the concept of frying poultry, but it was African-American cooks in the South who perfected the technique, seasoning the chicken and frying it in cast-iron skillets. By the mid-20th century, it was a Sunday staple, served to mark special occasions or simply as a reward for the week's hard work. Cornbread, meanwhile, is a true American original, rooted in Native American cooking. Made with cornmeal, it became a Southern classic for its simplicity and versatility. Whether sweetened with a touch of honey or served savory, it's the ideal partner for soaking up juices from the chicken or a splash of hot sauce. And then there are the collard greens, slow-cooked with a bit of pork or bacon fat for a smoky, hearty flavor. Rich in vitamins, they're proof that comfort food can also be nutritious. Now, who can go without some canned salmon? Funny enough, it's crabs and salmon that are actually some of the most expensive seafood you can get in the modern world. Back in the time of our boomer parents, they were such common catches thanks to the ever-so-lively fishing industries that it was impossible to spend a day without smelling some salmon down the block, especially if you were living in coastal cities. Pretty much everyone in those areas relied exclusively on meats like this to get by, and they had the nicest ways of preparing them too. You'd never get a bad bloat going that would make you want to stay indoors off of steamed or grilled salmon with rice. Plus, it helped that back then, we were still very much into exploring what other people and communities were cooking. So there were all these different ways of making salmon that never crossed anyone's mind before. People were suddenly experimenting, and there was enough of the stuff to go around. You've heard of buying store-bought pies and getting up to a serious baking session. Let me introduce you to canned and frozen pies, which were savory delights that were filled with meat. Usually, you'd get more beef and chicken than you bargained for with these, but sometimes they'd come in fruity flavors too, because towards the end of the boomer generation, plant-based and vegan eating was starting to pop off. It was really a wonderful time when this first dropped, though. People were suddenly starting to have their most favorite comfort food available to them in the most convenient ways. Going to the store to pick up a pie was a treat, in more ways than one. It was nice to have something so familiar on hand like that. Now, you've probably heard your grandmother emphasize the importance of always keeping your pasta dry. But have you ever thought about why that is? The thing with drying pasta is that besides just avoiding basic issues like how it clumps together, becomes the worst thing ever to eat, and just loses its freshness, you really just want to preserve pasta because of one simple concept: moisture content. Like we've discussed before, moisture is something that bacteria and mold need desperately to grow. If they don't get it, they're liable to have a breakdown, figuratively and literally. This is why drying pasta has been such a tradition in Italian culture and just about everywhere that popularly consumes it. Drying your pasta reduces the water content by a good 15%, and that helps the pasta achieve a much higher shelf life. I'm talking months, and if you really know how to preserve, then even years. Don't believe me? Trust me, there's an Italian on YouTube with an essay on it. One of Grandma's favorite beauty rituals, surely, is the avocado mask. This green masterpiece isn't just guacamole gone rogue. It's a deeply nourishing treatment that brings hydration and vitality back to your skin. The recipe is as simple as it is effective. Mash half a ripe avocado until smooth, mix in a tablespoon of honey for its antibacterial properties, and add a teaspoon of oatmeal for gentle exfoliation. Apply it evenly to your face, let it sit for 15 minutes, and rinse with warm water. The result? Skin that feels soft, plump, and rejuvenated. Avocados are the real MVP here, rich in healthy fats, vitamin E, and antioxidants. These nutrients penetrate deep into the skin, locking in moisture and combating dryness. The honey works its magic by soothing irritation and reducing redness, while oatmeal exfoliates dead skin cells without being harsh. Together, they form a trifecta of skin nourishment. Ancient Aztecs referred to avocado as butter of the forest, using them to protect and soften their skin in harsh climates. Grandma always joked that this mask made her look so young, she got carded at the bingo hall. It's nature's facelift, no needles, no fuss, just pure avocado goodness. Pork chops with scalloped potatoes was a duo so perfectly matched, it's as if they were destined to share the same plate. This meal became a dinner-time favorite for its balance of simplicity and satisfaction. Tender, pan-seared pork chops alongside creamy, cheesy potatoes. It's no wonder it earned its spot in the hearts and stomachs of families everywhere. The secret to scalloped potatoes lies in their layers. Thinly sliced potatoes are smothered in a rich, velvety sauce made from milk or cream, often with a touch of cheese, and baked until golden and bubbling. The dish likely evolved from French gratin dauphinois, but American cooks put their own spin on it by using cheese more liberally. Pork chops, on the other hand, have always been a practical choice for home cooks. Affordable and quick to prepare, they pair perfectly with the creamy potatoes, creating a meal that's hearty yet approachable. To many, the crispy edges of the potatoes and the seared crust on the pork chops were the best part. This meal is like a warm hug in casserole form. The only downside is that it's impossible to stop at just one serving. And really, who would want to? So, this one might take you for a spin, And I'm not sure if most of you would even be familiar with the concept. Potting your butter is a pretty historical technique, but not one that's especially popular in United States history or culture. The idea this time around is to take something like a jar or a crock and store your butter in that, and then cover it with a generous layer of clarified fat. This can either be lard or the clarified fat that comes from the butter itself, but the reason for doing this is that the layer acts as a seal. It helps to keep the butter fresh, and that's because the water and milk solids from butter are removed. What you get is pure, unadulterated butterfat left. Since it is pure, it's less likely to spoil in comparison to whole butter. Protecting it from the air also does the usual routine of keeping it safe from airborne germs and microbes. People used to do this a lot because in rural areas, even when refrigeration was a thing, it hadn't become a widespread or accessible practice. In cold places, for example, the mountain ranges here, storing these pots in dark basements would help push the shelf life up even more. Speaking of cheddar cheese and nostalgic family meals, we cannot go without mentioning the ever-timeless King Ranch chicken casserole. This is definitely a dish for those people who feel like casseroles without meat or protein of any kind are missing something and do not feel as fulfilling. It would take about an hour to cook, but this did massive numbers in every neighborhood from Detroit to Texas. Especially more so in the South, it was a common practice for families to preserve their King Ranch chicken casserole recipes. The real strength of the dish was that you could use as much of the ingredients as you wanted, letting you double or even triple the dish, an advantage that Southern grandmas would very often use when they were in the mood to dote on their grandkids. Grandma's cucumber and mint water was a staple in her daily routine. She'd always say, "A little cucumber in your water goes a long way for both hydration and keeping puffiness at bay." It was her go-to drink to keep her skin looking fresh and glowing, especially during the hot summer months. Making cucumber and mint water is simple. Just slice half a cucumber and a few fresh mint leaves, then add them to a jug of water. Let it infuse in the fridge for a few hours, and you've got a cool, refreshing drink that's perfect for staying hydrated. This drink is a true skin booster. Cucumber contains silica, which promotes healthy skin, while mint adds a refreshing touch and has anti-inflammatory properties that help reduce swelling and puffiness. The water helps flush toxins from the body, promoting a clear complexion. Cucumbers were used by ancient Greek and Roman women to soothe their skin, and mint has long been cherished for its cooling and healing qualities. Grandma always liked to say, "The more cucumber and mint in your water, the fewer wrinkles on your face." Now take me seriously when I say this, but you could get canned or bottled chocolate milk too. I know that's not exactly new information because you can still get it, but what you might be surprised to know is that your mom and dad at 30-something were still more likely than not avid chocolate milk enjoyers. You can hold that one over their head next time they tell you to eat like an adult when you walk in with some Dr. Pepper or cereal for breakfast. This was just as good as any chocolate milk you could at home, and it cost just a few cents. The powdered alternatives were even more affordable, but they didn't have that same magic that the canned ones did. These really were deliciously sweet, and I don't know if they actually used a lot of chocolate, but most of the companies I tried that were popular in the boomer era really had a strong cocoa flavor. Honey preservation is basically one of the few bounties of nature that will almost never betray you. It's good for your skin. It helps to boost your gut health. It doesn't ever go bad. And now I'm going to tell you all about how it preserves itself better than anything else. So, the thing with honey is that the super low moisture content in honey basically makes it impossible for any of the icky and nasty stuff we've gone over so far to grow or even get a chance to come into existence. Honey's also really acidic, and it falls anywhere between 3.2 and 4.5 on the pH scale. This helps to curb stomp the growth of any gross bacteria and fungi, so it's got a natural preservative quality in that. Anything that's got a strong acidic background naturally will do that. But honey works better for a few other reasons, like how honey naturally exudes something called glucose oxidase. When you combine this with just glucose, or sugar, you get hydrogen peroxide. This is a natural microbe hunter, and it basically destroys bacteria on sight. Honey has a high sugar content already and is largely made up entirely of glucose and fructose, so go figure. Long story short, the thing is just built different and built strong. One of Grandma's favorite beauty treatments was rosehip oil. This natural oil, extracted from the seeds of wild rose bushes, became her go-to remedy for glowing, youthful skin. Its secret lies in its high content of vitamin C and essential fatty acids, which work together to combat signs of aging and rejuvenate the skin. To make rosehip oil, the seeds of the rosehips are harvested and cold-pressed to extract the precious oil. The process preserves all the beneficial nutrients, resulting in a potent elixir that's ideal for restoring and hydrating the skin. The benefits of rosehip oil are well documented. It's a powerful anti-aging tool, thanks to its ability to stimulate collagen production. Collagen helps maintain skin's elasticity, reducing fine lines and wrinkles. The essential fatty acids, including omega-3 and omega-6, deeply hydrate and repair dry or damaged skin. Rosehip oil is also a great choice for reducing dark spots, scars, and hyperpigmentation, making it a natural remedy for skin tone imbalance. Rosehip oil was used by the ancient Egyptians, including Cleopatra, who was known to use it to maintain her radiant complexion. It was also a staple in folk medicine throughout Europe. With roots in Southern cooking, smothered chicken with onions and gravy is the perfect blend of crispy chicken, tender onions, and rich gravy that makes you want to go back for seconds, and maybe even thirds. Smothering food, whether it's chicken, pork chops, or beef, is an iconic Southern technique. The term smothered refers to cooking the meat slowly in its own juices or a flavorful sauce, often with onions or bell peppers, until it's tender and full of flavor. For this dish, the chicken is first browned to achieve a crispy golden skin before being smothered in sautéed onions and a gravy made from pan drippings. The result is a plate of food that's pure comfort. Gravy, of course, is the magic behind smothered chicken. Made from the fond left in the pan after frying, it's rich and savory, sometimes thickened with flour or cornstarch and seasoned to perfection. And those onions caramelize beautifully, adding sweetness and depth to every bite. Smothered chicken is like a hug on a plate, if that hug could also be crispy and covered in gravy. It's a dish that brings people to the table, no matter the occasion. That wraps up the forgotten budget recipes our grandparents once swore by. Comment which one surprised you the most, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.